right. Hey, Joe, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. How are you, Carlo?
Yeah, really good. It's a real pleasure to have you on, and it's an opportunity for us to carry on what was a phenomenal first chat that we had within the Forbes Technology Council. And so the plan for today is it's an opportunity for us to take that further, to dig a little bit into the corners where we had not dug before because we didn't
Sure.
have time. So I know you got a phenomenal PowerPoint and you'll be sharing that with you. But before we jump into that, let me just introduce you to the audience, and also for the benefit for all of those thousands of viewers that will be watching the replay. Joe Sykora is become a very dear friend of mine since we got together in Barcelona a couple of years ago.
Absolutely.
And we think the same. And Joe is an incredible entrepreneur. So he's a absolute titan in the industry. He has been at the helm of multiple ventures. He's been an entrepreneur in his own right, and did extremely well with his own solution provider. He moved on to become a key person that really put Bitdefender on the map. And since Joe moved to Proofpoint has trebled in size, if not more, and it's just building success on success. So Joe Sykora, he has the magic touch when it comes to channels and alliances.
Magic touch.
You have the magic touch, Joe. I worked in channel
All right.
and alliance all my life, and Joe, it's 30 years. It's a long time. But you've got that. You got that secret, the secret Disney dust, the secret weapon. And last time I called you publicly the samurai of channels, and I stick to that.
Right.
I really believe that you are. So, yeah. With that said, just welcome to the show. And how have you been keeping? And what have you been doing lately? Tell us a little bit about where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been staying busy. I've been all over the world. As you mentioned, I'm here at Proofpoint. This is actually my third year. So I was brought into Proofpoint to lead kind of a channel transformation into ecosystems, which is part of what we're going to talk about today. So we're in year 3, actually in year 4, because I just celebrated almost a little over 3 years in December. So with that, I've been very active. I've been traveling the world. I mean, because a lot of the thing with whenever you do a transformation, you really need to have that feedback loop, right? And that's for anyone out there looking to transform their channel motions. You have to baseline it, and then you have to do feedback, right? So I'm kind of in that feedback tour. And it's also that time of year too, where we like to get in front of our partners. So I've been in Australia. I've been throughout Europe, throughout the US, Canada. I'll also be going to Tokyo here in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, man, I've been busy, keeping it real for sure. And RSA is coming up too, right? So for many of you out there, if you're at RSA coming up in the next couple of weeks, let me know, because I'll be there as well.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Inspirational as always. I have literally a ton of things I want to talk to you about in this fireside chat. I've got a list of questions. Last time we didn't touch the alliances all that much. I'd like to talk to you about co-marketing with strategic alliances, and how to make that work, which is something that hardly ever does. I want to talk to you about some of our projects with the Institute, including our Cyber Eagle project, and I'd like for you to sort of help us see where we're going right and wrong on that, because that is a partner ecosystem play with the marketplace attached. So there's a number of things that I'd like to touch upon. And I know this will be really interesting for a lot of people that will watch this afterwards with, within the membership of the Institute and around the world. To set the scene, to level set, I was going to ask you, if you don't mind, to just run through your deck, because that will just set the scene and tell us where, what it's all about. So go ahead, fire away.
All right, let's see here. Well, as we start firing away, hold on, because it looks like I can't just share. I have to upload them. So let me upload them real quick.
Oh yeah, no worries.
I will, and then but we can start talking through some of this.
Well,
as well, because they're uploading right now.
Yeah, no problem at all. Whilst you're uploading, I'm just going to give the audience a little level set on the critical infrastructure Cyber Eagle program that I wanted to sort of
Sure.
discuss with you as well. So, for those of you who don't know, so I am the executive chairman of a cybersecurity and AI institute. We're a nonprofit, California 501c3. And one of our key goals really is to raise the bar when it comes to cybersecurity posture across the United States and across the NATO countries and all of our U.S. allies. And in particular, we've been really concerned around critical infrastructure. So we set up a task force dedicated to that. And we really have la creme de la creme, as they say, of cybersecurity leaders on this task force. Audience members are welcome to submit an application if you're interested in participating. But what we're doing there is that we are going to be, the goal is to not quite fix it all, but to try to improve dramatically the cybersecurity posture of all of U.S. critical infrastructure by the end of next year. And the way we're going to do that is by creating a partner ecosystem.
It looks like it's uploaded, right? What time?
There you go. And it's going to be, basically, it's all about the transformation. This is going to be about the digital transformation of critical infrastructure. So a little bit different, but it's going to rely on putting together a list of about 50 vendors that are going to be, again, complementary to an extent, but the best of breed in each of the areas of cybersecurity that need to be covered. There's going to be a generative AI front end. There's going to be a marketplace on the back end. And our institute is working very hard with the US government to actually turn this into a fundable program. Again, in the vision at the moment is that it might come through as a forgivable loan program through some government entity or agency. I will disclose as things get finalized, but it's all looking pretty good. And when this happens, with something like 45 to 50 vendors and maybe 500 to 600 MSSPs, I think we've got something really powerful in terms of our go-to-market. And when that happens, what we need to do is to make sure that we look at our partner ecosystem very carefully and make sure that we have all the components, because it may require more than just the MSSPs, which are clearly the pivotal part. We may look at really important vCISO, virtual CISO services. We may be looking at other more baseline IT support services like MSPs that support companies in a way that maybe some critical infrastructure companies in mid-market aren't quite supported. So that's the background. And with that said, let me just ask Joe to launch his presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Carlo. And like you said, ecosystems can be different to everyone, right? So all of you out there, whether depending on your sales motion, your partnering motion, obviously when you hear the term ecosystem, that's a lot of us in the channel and have done channel type stuff. It's been around for a while. So I think we already did the background. Like Carlo mentioned, I think I was a serial entrepreneur for the first 14 years of my career, all in cyber MSP. So I've been in cyber for a long time. I did go to Fortinet, then Bitdefender. I'm here at Proofpoint. So I've been able to not only be a part of a lot of these transformations, but really be a part of a lot of exciting things. Like I joined Fortinet at IPO. So that was a fun ride from IPO from a couple $100 million to about 1.7 billion is when I left. And gosh, they're billions and billions now. So let's start with the traditional routes to market. So if you're old school, and I'm not going to say I am old school, so I'm talking about myself. We basically usually started with traditional routes to market, which, you were either going to be direct or indirect, right? That's it, right? So when you had your sales motion, you were either going to decide I'm going to build out a direct sales force or an indirect sales force. Now, indirect, it could be one tier, which is you selling to a partner. It could be two tier, which would be you selling to a distributor to a partner. We could put, you know, what I like to say, a precious metal program together. So a lot of the things you see out there, silver, gold, platinum, throw in bronze, my favorite tinfoil, you know, we could have that out there too as a tier for most of the time those discount levels. And the partner or the reseller was really rewarded in the time of purchase. Now, there were other routes too, right? There's some influencers, right? So if you look at things like the telco industry, we used agents, and all that's relevant in today's market too. And then you could have a mixed model. So again, indirect or direct, or you can have it mixed. Here at Proofpoint, I actually have a mixed model, which a lot of the manufacturers are going with a little bit of a mixed model. If you're selling to the enterprise or federal government, typically that's more of a direct motion, but you do bring partners in as well. So that is just to kind of level set your traditional. And then we move into more of modern routes to market. And modern routes to market kind of define everything. So when I talk about a route to market, think of it as I have a product or service that I want to offer or sell. How do I get it to the end user? So you have your traditional resale, which we just talked about, right? This is what most people consider partner or channel. Most of it being resell. You can have a global reseller, a regional reseller, a national reseller, or this could also be distribution. Service providers, and again, service providers have been around for a long time. This could be two types I like to talk about. You've got your enterprise focus, which are typically MSSPs, right? Security service providers, which could be either global or regional. And then you have your other managed service providers, or just MSPs. Normally they cater to the SMB commercial market because they're doing more than just security. They are doing security, but they're doing, you know, they're managing printers and they're managing desktops and notebooks and everything else for your organization. So that's kind of a complete solution versus just focused on security. We've seen emergence of marketplaces over the last probably 10 years plus. You know, you've got a couple different marketplaces out there. You have your hyperscalers. So you have Microsoft, AWS, Google, Oracle, you know, those are the big ones on the hyperscaler side. And then you also have seen other marketplaces kind of pop up through distribution. So like Ingram Micro has their marketplace, Pax8 has their marketplace, and so on. So the ones that are relevant, I think, to more of the end user is more of the hyperscalers. And there have been some tier twos that have come up as well. You have an OEM motion, right? So this could be it could be that you have a technology or service that you want to either white label or OEM, and that could be a route to market where you're actually, example, when I was doing managed security services, obviously I couldn't be everything to everyone. There were parts of for example, like pen testing, very, very, very specific. You know, I actually partnered with another group that all they did was pen testing, and that was, you know, I OEM them or white labeled them. So that's another route to market. Alliances, which we're going to talk more about today, right? Specifically because we didn't talk about that a lot last time. This could be, and I see my slides when I uploaded them a little bit shifted with the, so I'll try to correct that when I get this over to you. So if you guys want a copy of the deck, we can get it to you. Technology alliances, though. This could be development, could be integration. So for example, I've got integrations with several other technology providers such as CrowdStrike and Palo Alto Networks, where it's an API integration that on my side, I actually identify who in theory should be attacked, right? Your VAPs, your very attacked person, are probably going to be attacked. There's a lot of different vectors. We use AI, of course, we use ML, and we use a couple other different things, vectors that we have to say, these are the people you really need to protect. I can hand that off to someone like a CrowdStrike or a Palo to do a specific policy for those people that isn't static, it's dynamic. It's pretty powerful stuff. So if you guys are out there and you've done managed services before, just think about that. As things change, I can change the rules, which is pretty cool. So these technology alliances, and this could also be strategic as far as a go-to-market, because sometimes it's more of a marketing thing, right? So we do have what's called meet in the channel, where my technology may not be integrated with yours, but it makes sense. So for example, I'm doing email protection, I'm doing DLP and protecting the people. Maybe you've got someone that's going to do endpoint or a firewall or some other technology which is complementary. So you've got some of those alliances as well, and you've also got alliances with organizations, right? So you can talk about other things that make sense in things that we'll talk about. And then kind of beneath all this is you do have the influencer. You may hear of shadow channel. That's a term that's been out there for a couple of years as well, but it's becoming popular. And the influencer shadow channel routes to market is one that's really interesting, because that's kind of where your agents from the telco industry are kind of put into, because these are the people that may not resell, they may not manage, but they definitely influence, right? So it could be, we're seeing things like medical associations and insurance companies, and just think of it, whatever industry you're in, there could be an influencing party that could recommend you, or at least refer people to you. So the influencer side.
So let me just ask you about that.
Sure.
Like currently, how seriously do you take the shadow channel? Because we've all been talking about it for a long time now, and
Sure.
Generally it's lip service, right? Because nobody ever does anything about it. We know it's there. We think it's important, but
Right.
at the end of the day, we don't put budget towards doing anything substantial with the shadow channel, unless you have a in very particular cases I've seen it, but not very rarely. So how do you see that, George, and what's your experience of it?
Yeah. So I agree with you. Through the years, it has been kind of like, hey, we all understand it makes a lot of sense, but we don't fund it. I think this route to market is actually becoming more and more relevant because of combining it with places like a marketplace, right? Yeah. So think about this. So marketplaces have really reduced transactional fees for a lot of us on the manufacturing side. So if you're out there selling products and services, marketplaces are definitely a great place to do a transaction. But what you don't get all the time is you don't get the maybe some of the referral type information or specifics to a specific industry that you would like. Because really, when people go on AWS, what do they want to do? They want to buy something, right? So they're being told or influenced by someone to do that. So that's one of the routes that I like to see, combining them, right? Combining the two things. And listen, for a lot of things that we do, I work with a lot of regulated industries, and I always have. Some of this is also sharing things like our training and intelligence and things that they want access to. And again, look at accounting firms, right? Accounting firms, there's a lot of accounting firms that actually bought a lot of technology firms because their clients needed to have something as a standard. So it is something that I think is growing. If you're out there contemplating, if you're not using it today, and how do you build it into your ecosystem, right, is, you may look at using like a deal registration, and we're going to talk about kind of ecosystems and how things change. I've got a couple slides on that, on rewarding people or partners at points of the sales cycle versus just the point of sale. And that's the big change, I think, with ecosystems, right? And that's where influencers can be somewhat compensated, or you can get budget to fulfill those. So
right. So we've all seen, for example, the analyst reports over the last couple of years, and we've been to the conferences. Sure. And what we've seen is what the analysts are telling us, and rightly so, because we're actually seeing that, is that channel is moving from 75% channel partners and VARs and MSSPs being transactional to maybe dropping quite substantially to maybe 40%, but becoming vital to the tune of 90% in assisting revenue closing through marketplaces, which is what you're referring to right now. But when it comes when it comes to channel programs, this is my question, and it's not addressed at Proofpoint. It's just in general what you're seeing amongst your peers. The bulk of the channel spend in terms of channel marketing, in terms of channel sales, of events, it still seems to me to be very much geared at transactional VAR, MSP, MSSP channel, rather than grooming this vital 90% that I'm not seeing. What are you guys? what do you do, and what would you like to do, and what would you recommend to other channel
Yeah.
chiefs leaders to do when it comes to that side of things, in terms of
Yeah. Well,
how do you create that?
it, exactly. Well, that's a perfect lead in, Carlo, because, and I don't even think you knew what you were leading me into, but really, you're correct. A lot of today's partner programs are a little antiquated, right? So one of the things that I did, it was actually in 2023, is I introduced a two-tier program, right, which is basically people and partners, managed service providers, partners that are going to invest in me. They're relevant to me. I'm relevant to them. And then I have this other bucket, which you can call it the long tail, you can call it something else. These are the people that I want to get to the first bucket, but I have to put them somewhere. I got rid of the 3 tiers, the 4 tiers, the precious metals. And some of my peers were like, well, that's not how we do it. We're all transforming to an ecosystem, right? So let me answer your question by describing kind of what's happening out there, because you're correct, right? So, you know, this is kind of the world we see today when you talk about channel, right? You'll see influencers on the left side. You've got ISVs, manufacturers. You've got resellers, MSPs, agents. So this is kind of, and you'll also notice non-transactional partners over there. Just those are also referrals. So 70-90% of all goods and services flow through some type of channel, right? So that's a big number, and things are shifting, like I said, to traditional resell. Like you mentioned, they're shifting to more of those hyperscalers down there, which we've actually identified as well. This actually came from Larry Walsh from Channelnomics, so some of you guys might know Larry out there. Great friend, great consultant. I've been working with Larry for a long time and known Larry for many, many years. $1.5 trillion is basically sales and revenue by this massive beast. So you can take another look at, and this is from another one of my friends, Jay McBain. So you guys probably know Jay over at Canalys. This is another view of the same thing that I just showed, which is, all of these different things. We focus, right? If you look at where we focus most of, and I don't know if my cursor's coming up, but that middle circle, VAR retail distribution,
Yeah.
500,000, that's where most of us have most of our programs focused on. And what we need to do is we need to make this shift, because the world is not just that round bubble. If you look at right here, as far as the new global technology channel, it's everything, right? So if you look on the right side, these are the influencers, right? I talked about this: CPAs, legal, transport, construction, healthcare. Those are vertical organizations, management consultants. So you've got a lot of people over here. You've also got over on the left-hand side, you do have affiliate programs. You have ambassador, co-sell. You have a lot of different things. So you need to make sure that you're incorporating all these things into your program, because it's not the way it used to be, right? We do look at kind of this new digital journey, right? Where, and I'm sure many of you have probably sat through marketing presentations before too, where it shows, the buyer's journey, right? The buyer's journey has changed, right? I think many of us out there, you're used to the traditional funnel, right? Which is top of the funnel, mid funnel, and then I get a sale at the end. It's not like that anymore. It's circular. And at any one point, they can be influenced to go to a buy, because a lot of people are doing research on their own. So you do have this new digital journey, and you have to incorporate this. So that's where the influence, right? Listen, I'm not out there getting social influencer yet, right? Because my products and services are business related. But if I had a retail product, I would probably go after these social influencers that everyone is using. And that's probably why they're making all the money on influencing, because they influence buyers. So it could go from seeing someone, an influencer, using a product or service, to sale just because they like that person that is using it. That's how dynamic things have changed. So you really need to look at your business and decide what really makes sense for you. Now, I'm going to show another slide here, and this is kind of what I just described, the circular motion of new customers coming in. There is some advising, some design, procure, adopt, but these can move from new customer to procure rather quickly, right? Now, so it doesn't have to do your traditional thing. This right here, right? So if you're building an ecosystem, the concept of ecosystem is simplify your programs to really be a little more generic, because face it, if you're looking at a straight resale program, most of us would go to special pricing and give the low guy and high guy not much difference in pricing, okay, if it's just straight retail. Now, what we all want is we want a lot of these things listed on the sides where, if you look for service and support, if you have a product that needs a POC or a heavy lift on design, something like that, the whole concept of an ecosystem is now rewarding your partners, which partners could be everything we mentioned today, each of these different areas, right? So, you're really paying for or rewarding certain behaviors than making a sale. And that's the big difference when it comes to some of these things, because, listen, I've been doing this for a while, and this is what partners want, right? They will put skin in the game if you let them get rewarded, because if you do hey, we'll just reward you on resale, what if it goes to jump ball, right? What if at the end everyone gets skinny on margin and the guy who did all the work kind of doesn't win the deal? They've got a lot of things. So yeah,
I'm going to throw a curveball at you right now.
Sure.
So, of course, we come from a world where still today a lot of senior executive CEOs don't really believe in channel, and they're seeing margin being eaten out, right? Now, if you're turning that from we're going to give margin to the people that's not our product to we're going to give away margin to people that accompany the customer throughout the journey and throughout the whole motion, and it sounds pretty fluffy. I mean, I believe it. I'm a proponent on it. I've been talking about it for 10 years because that's how things work.
Sure.
But in terms of justifying budget, how hard is it to justify budget and say, well, look, we're going to move it. It's not going to be directly on. It's not going to be, we come from a world of rebates. It's not going to be rebates.
Sure.
It's not going to be MDF on transactional partners. We're doing something esoteric here. How well does that go down, and how many millions of dollars do you actually get in budget?
Well, your budget's going to be dependent on how much revenues you're doing, right? So depending on which size organization is going to be a percentage of that. Typically, channel gets 6 or 7% of revenue, roughly. I mean, that's overall marketing. Channel could probably get a subset of that. Now, what you need to think about, though, is this does integrate some of your channel, like your front end margins, right, and discounts with marketing. So when I reward someone for a certain behavior, it could be I'm using some of my budget from my old Spiff program, right? So I used to reward people for, say a net new logo or getting me to a certain point. Okay, well, that is part of the sales cycle, so that's okay. But, changing things like, okay, I'll reward you now on a POC and find a way to do either, I don't want to call it a spiff because it is more of an incentive, but it's using some type of platform to allow you to define your sales cycle. And then whatever methodology you use, like I've used Spin, Medic, you name them, they're all sales, different methodologies that you can use, but you have defined stages in your sales process. So if you know that if you can get someone to a POC, like I have a very technical sale, if I know that I need to get to a POC to win 90% of my business, so my conversion rate is higher, what am I going to do? I'm going to reward pretty heavy on a POC. So it is a shift in, you've got to look at combined, right? Your marketing programs that you traditionally use. So you're right. Listen, we can probably debate volume incentive rebates and back-end rebates all day long. There is still a purpose for that. Like if you're doing a share shift campaign where you want to competitively take out someone and you've got a partner, MSP, reseller, any type of partner willing to take business that's over here with your competition and move it to you, you can reward for that, right? Because that is definitely something around the ecosystem or sales cycle. So that's the concept you need to do. Probably where and it's funny because I did this probably 6 or 7 years ago. We launched a new training and certification program. And what did I want to do? I wanted to, because to me, a well-educated salesperson or technical person is my best salesperson. So I wanted to encourage them to take my new training. So what I did was I did a pretty aggressive incentive to basically pay for, like, you complete training and I can verify you did it. I'm going to reward you a certain amount. I remember, and again, this was not a Proofpoint. This was before. I think the one quarter, it was like $200,000 worth of incentives because I had so many people uptick it, which I looked at as a great thing. Now my budget was only like 25,000. So I did get called to the principal's office, the CFO, and he said, "What happened here?" And I was like, well, this is the motion I want to reward for. So it was an ecosystem play. I said, here, and I have all the data behind it, where if you have an educated or certified salesperson versus non, you're going to see a huge return, right? I think it was like, at the time, it was like 33x or something like that. So, and you know what? It all came true. Now I had to carry it out. I was betting on the future, but those are things that you're going to have to do with your programs to do that. Will you get some pushback? Potentially, but like I tell everybody, you got to manage your P&L, right? So whether it's your channel P&L, which involves marketing, people, and everything else, you've got to take a look at that and say, where am I going to get the best for the bang for the buck? And you could do this and you could fund this without incremental funding, right? Like, you can do this within your budget. You may have to squeeze some of your transactional fees. You may have to do something else, but you know, those are all things that I'd be happy to talk to anyone out there, and we could talk about that methodology as well of how you do it. But it's a CFO conversation, man. It's a CSO conversation. So
yeah, I like that a lot because what you're saying is it's not necessarily asking for more budget. It's just
correct.
It's also it's educating. You're educating the channel on the one side, but you're also educating the CFO on what's changed, and you're not asking for more. You're just changing the way you use it, right?
Absolutely. Well, and this is where I know this is one of the reasons why you probably called me a samurai, because I still look everywhere I'm at is I have a P&L, right? So I still run the business as my own business within the business, which means, you know, we all have, and this is a common mistake that I see with other channel leaders, is they think if they need more budget, more headcount, more marketing, more XYZ to do something, they have to go to the board, the CFO, their immediate boss, and say, "Hey, I need more money. I need incremental." And that's not necessary. I mean, listen, there have been times where I've been able to go, and if it's truly I need incremental, I'll make a business case and say, "Here's why. Here's the math, and here's the projected ROI." But most of the time, I can do it within my own envelope. And if you can do it within your own envelope, that's where you're going to have more success. It does require you to do some more work, but to be completely honest with you, man, it's definitely a much sellable story. So I only have one more slide, and then we can kind of go to Q&A and ask some questions. This is what if you want to talk about simplified structure, this is my structure today. I went to Core Elite. So Core is my, basic, just people that want to be part, and I've got all those routes to market I support there, and Elite, right? And then I do have some specializations, right? Because within my organization, it makes sense for me to have that. But that's as simple as I made it, man. And I see a lot of channel leaders going to that. I'm going to close that so you and I are just talking, but don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
Simplification is always a winner, right? If you can make it simple, if you can take the friction out of the motion, has definitely always been, I know we always say that, but do it, right? I see so many people say that, and then they have this really super complex program that is just no one understands, and honestly, you don't follow it, right?
No, complex programs are a kiss of death in this world.
Absolutely.
I so agree with you. I so don't want to see it, complex programs anymore, and complex partner agreements. Oh my God. I've seen, being a consultant as I have been for decades, I have risked the ugliest stuff that just turns partners off so much and just kills the mojo of a relationship with another company. So no, we're on the same page there. Listen, I wanted to pick up on something that you said before. and
Sure.
and stir the pot. So
Of
you talked
course.
about, yeah. So you said if I was in the B2C business, I'd use sort of YouTube influencers and that sort of thing a lot more, the social influencers.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So of course, we you and I and most of our audience that watches this now or in the future are also in the B2B game. That's the kind of audience that we have. Having said
Right.
that, the people that make these decisions, that do this research, they're people, they're consumers,
Sure.
right? They buy,
Sure.
they live at home with probably a wife, a dog, and 2 children, and they buy a washing machine just like we do, right? And
Hmm.
and when it comes to maybe making the right cybersecurity decision, they research it, and
Sure.
up comes YouTube with a bunch of videos from different vendors. So some vendors are doing a lot of it, some are doing a little bit of it, but to what extent should a enterprise-oriented B2B business see their decision makers as consumers within an enterprise?
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Well, listen, there's still going to be influence from all aspects. It's just, I think most of us, if I look at my products and services, I have average sales prices of, someone's just going to pick up the phone and say, hey, you know what? I want some of that, right? Because it's a large ticket item. So you've got to decide where it kind of fits in your marketing strategy, right? So if you have, it's funny because I do, fortunately, like you, I have a lot of colleagues, a lot of friends, and a lot of people, entrepreneurs out there, and it amazes me because I always talk to them. In fact, one of my friends had it was a pet hair removal, right? Like a little simple static, right? It just takes out pet hair. And I was talking to him and I just went over the business model. You want to talk about a very simple model, not a lot of employees. It was really more of an online Amazon and those type of marketplace type. But the average price was, I think, $30 or something like that. He had great results getting influencers, social influencers to endorse his product or certain placements. And he would just see this thing skyrocket, right? Because people emotional, they're like, hey, I can spend $30 and I want this because that makes sense. On the B2B side, it's typically a little bit harder than that, right? You may get them, but I don't think if I hired, and I don't even know, it's funny because I don't even know. I think my kids probably know better than I do all these social influencers. But what pops to mind in my head is always like the Kardashians, right? They were always the big influencer. So I don't see them endorsing, say, my products today, and someone's going to go just buy that, right? Because that's something. But you do have different types of influencers, right? So, for example, people like you and myself and others out there that have been in cyber for 20, 30 years plus, an endorsement does say something about, okay, this person is an expert and I should check it out. But I don't think you'll ever see someone buying. I don't think it'd be funny because I don't think anyone out there is buying something endorsed by Joe Sykora because he's been in cyber for so long.
Yeah.
Maybe some channel structure and everything else, but no products or services. So it is a little bit different. Now, you mentioned people are doing research, and they are. They're going to Google. They're going to all these online. Reddit, right? Reddit's another place where people go to get feedback and everything. So that marketing strategy of using targeted marketing and influence marketing, of course, we're doing things like that, and all of you should be looking at it too, right? Like if you haven't, again, these are not new technologies, but I think the interesting thing is AI is making it a little more interesting than it ever was, because again, back when I ran marketing at a couple different companies, we always did targeting, right? We always did targeted marketing. We did influencing where we could serve up ads and things of people that we wanted to get in front of. But listen, you need to look at where, and I tell this to everyone in marketing, you need to go where your potential buyer is at versus driving them towards you, right? If anyone out there is still trying to drive people to your website, that's not really you don't do that anymore, right? You go after where the people eyeballs are. It's a much smarter and less expensive way to market. Go where the people are. So if the people for your solution are on YouTube and Twitter, and I'm sorry, not Twitter, X, and you know, TikTok and all those other different things that are out there, those platforms, great. Maybe that's something you need to consider, right? Because you need to go where your audience is. It's the same thing, right? Through the years, you see a lot of people. Now, I have seen, you do also see, you can throw sponsorships in there too, right? So you see a lot of sponsorships on golf, right? We just had the Masters. So you see a lot of sponsorships there. You have Formula One racing. So, you know, those are also, you know, targeted to a little bit different.
So is the boundary of responsibility changing between, let's say, somebody like yourself as a senior VP of channels and alliances and your CMO or your marketing organization? Like, is the cutoff changing because all this is changing, right? So what's your take on that? What's the reality of what goes on behind the scenes in a big corporation like this?
Well, I think the lines have been blurred or changing for a while now, right? Yeah. So if you look at, I'm a little bit biased, right? Because I've been in channels, but I've also run global sales, and I've also been the CEO of my own companies. They're very similar, right? So if you look at someone on the channel side, if you're a channel leader out there, I always go, and I've spoke at a lot of different conferences. We potentially are the CEOs of tomorrow, right? Because on the channel side, you do need to put together the whole story. You have to look at marketing. You have to look at how the solutions are put together. So it is. I have seen some of the responsibilities in, you know, if you're out there, like if there's anyone out there just starting their career and you want to go into, say, channels as a career, you've got to be ready to almost run your business within the business. That's how people have success. That's how you separate yourself from everyone else, is because you're going to be able to talk the talk and also walk the walk, but it requires you to understand all these other dynamics of the business. So I have seen lines blurred. You know, my career has been interesting because I've run operations. I've had marketing on and off. I've done direct sales. I've done channel sales. So I've been able to see all of that. Probably the only thing I haven't done is I've never been a CFO. But I will tell you, I understand P&Ls like the best of them, and financials as well, because it's really important for all of us to understand.
Yeah. So switching gears, let's talk about alliances.
Sure.
Alliances.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you my take. So big chunk of my life, I spent that in software-defined data center alliances.
Sure.
So
sure.
Like supporting companies like my clients at VMware or Nutanix, or in the older days, Oracle with the Sun acquisition, IBM.
Sure.
And generally you know, I focused a lot on those alliances and the go-to-market motions between, let's say, a big software provider of virtualization or Kubernetes or whatever, and you know, Docker and hardware providers, right? And there's very logical reasons why these companies should go to market together. What I've seen is that the execution is painfully hard, and it doesn't often bring the rewards that it merits. Tell me a little bit about your experience, at least what you feel that you can disclose publicly around your experience on alliances and specifically the channel go-to-market. So how do you orchestrate a go-to-market together? Whose value propositions do you lead with? To what extent can you boss around the other vendor's channel, and to what extent do you expect them to boss your channel around, and how do you coordinate all that? So this is a big question.
Yeah, that is a big question. Well, and first of all, I think no one's bossing anyone around, right? And there is an expectation sometimes when I go into some of these alliances, and I'll ask them, you know, the first question I have when we're talking to someone new that maybe I don't know is, you know, what's your expectations? What are you trying to get out of it? Now, if they start with, I want your database of clients, that's usually when I'm like, okay, that's really, I don't see the benefit for me in the organization that I'd be with. So it has to be a win-win. So there's a couple different alliances you can do. And I touched on this a little bit during the routes to market. Listen, the most simplest way is a meet in the channel or marketing type alliance, which is just several people who have different solutions that maybe maybe after the same end user, right? Those are very simple. You could work with a peer at a different company. Obviously, I've done this before where it could just be co-sponsoring some type of event, right? Hey, I'll take 5,000, you take 5,000, and we put together a $10,000 event, and you invite yours and I'll invite mine. That's a marketing. That's really not a true alliance, but there are some meat in the channel type stuff. Those are easy to do. Your results are going to be mixed, but from some of those, what I do is I survey partners and end users quite a bit. So I'm always a constant feedback loop, right? Of what do they want to see? Or I also look at what are my partners selling and does it make sense? I've got some of my best technology alliances recommendations from my partners, right? It's just a simple, ask them what else, because you'll be surprised. A lot of our partners are putting a lot of the MSPs, they're putting things together that work really well. And those are things you need to look at. The technology, so there could be a true technology play. Like I mentioned before, I have alliances with a lot of different organizations out there. What it is, it's a deep alliance. I mean, it's an API integration. So we exchange data back and forth because they're providing and I'm providing something that is more beneficial to the end user, right? So, and I think I already mentioned CrowdStrike. We've got 5 integrations with CrowdStrike, right? So obviously they're important to me. I'm important to them. And that's a better result for an end user, and that's a true technology integration, right? So you'll see a lot of the manufacturers too, like there's some out there that's saying, hey, join my program and get certified. Unless there's true API certification, that's just a marketing play, right? It's hey, we work together, but there's probably not any deep technical integrations. Then you get into some of the other alliances, right? So how you make it all work, first of all, you have to track it, right? So you do need to set up the right KPIs and reporting to say, this is what success looks like. That's like anything you try, you're going to have to do that. So for me, I'm always defining the KPIs before we even go into any type of alliance to say, what are the benefits, right? What are the benefits for both organization? And if one's heavily weighted to the other, it may not fly. We've been part of, and we being Proofpoint, we've actually had a lot of reference architecture type design that we've done with other alliance partners to go out there. And those of you out there familiar with this probably know what I'm talking about, where it was like 3 or 4 of us that presented, here is a total solution on how you get this thing done, right? So you could look at things like zero trust, right? I know that there's a lot of things that no one manufacturer can do everything. So that's when you look at concepts, and normally the analysts like Gardner and everybody else is saying, hey, this is the problem, or the customers, here's the problem, here's the solution we want. It's involving more than one of us, right? It really is. So you have to look for who's got those tight integrations and who doesn't. And then it just becomes you'll know, right? You'll know if it's working for sure.
So with regards to like partner business plans, I don't know if you guys do those, but when
we do.
So when you do partner business plans within the context of an alliance, obviously what you would do your partner business plans insofar as your viewpoint as Proofpoint is concerned. But to what extent, let's say CrowdStrike, for instance, do you try to orchestrate that as a joint 3-way business plan? So like, this is what CrowdStrike should achieve, what you should help CrowdStrike to achieve. This is what we can help you to achieve together with Proofpoint, and do it as a 3-way thing with the points and a CrowdStrike number. Can you do that?
Yeah, it's so we do, right? So for some of our key technology alliance partners, we do a business plan and expectations, and we also have joint marketing plan as well. So it involves, here's the things we're going to do together. I will also be at some of their events. They'll be at some of mine. Now the tricky part, right? In the when things really work, then you get a managed service provider or other provider in the mix too. Now that one is really difficult, right? So even though it makes a lot of sense, unless you're very, very relevant to that partner, and you're relevant to them, and they're relevant to you on both sides. That's the only time it really works, right? So I will say I have when I say a handful, I'm talking like 5 or less, where it makes a lot of sense for us to offer that. Now, I have other partners that maybe aren't on the top of the stack with me revenue wise, but they're on the top of the stack with me technology wise, because they're doing heavy managed services, that also come to me and say, okay, and this is from my advisory councils and everything else I have with them. here's what makes sense for me, and let's do something together with them. So sometimes a partner will do that as well, but it's difficult, right, to pull something like that off. So if you're out there and you're struggling with it, don't worry, because all of us do it. Have I done it before? Yes. Has it been successful? Yes. Typically, it's almost like a bundle, right? In the whole, here's their solution, here's mine, Mr. MSP, you're going to go out there and service it and sell it that way. That's about the only time that I've seen success throughout my career. Right. There has to be some type of customer demand, but also we have to be solving some type of big problem out there.
And so, related to this, I wanted to ask you, and I'm asking you all my favorite questions here, because it's a fair opportunity really to have a discussion like this with you. So let's say that you, as a channel chief, you just done like a world trip. You got a lot of feedback from partners. You know what they want. You have this new idea for a fabulous new technology partnership, an alliance that you can have with another vendor that is truly complementary, right? So it's in your mind, and you want to sort of make it happen for real next year, right? So, but you've got a complex organization, because you have, I don't know how many, you got lots of channel account managers, territory managers, you've got VPs, you got directors, you've got the partner marketing teams in different areas with different responsibilities, maybe for different products, and your alliance partner, your alliance technology vendor that you want to design a relationship have the same structure. So how do you go about the waterfall to make sure that knowledge and that vision is goes all the way down to both organizations, that they're able to orchestrate together and then go to market together to their conjoint, separate, and overlapping partners, with messaging that is that really makes sense to them, that galvanizes them? What's the secret? It sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah, well, so here's how I do it, and here's how I've been successful. I have a dedicated team just to do technology alliances, and one of those team members really does evaluation of new alliances with us, right? And I've had that type of setup wherever I go. So that's just part of my normal channel organization. Now, you may or may not have technology alliances, because I've also seen technology alliances. Gosh, I've seen it under legal. I've seen it under product marketing, and it could live other places, but there has to be someone that owns it, right? So for me, and you're right, whenever I come back from these big conferences, or when I come back from these advisory councils, I'll come back with all these ideas. And first I think through them. Now, you need to first do a check if it's a technology integration, or to come up with a joint solution. You know, I run that past engineering, right? It's like, okay, is it feasible? And then I get their feedback. So I do get a technical readout as far as, does it make sense on the technology side? And then I do look at marketing. I look at the sales go to market to say, is it sellable, right? So obviously, just because I hear it from one, now normally it's not going to be just one partner. It's going to have to be several partners. And they'll also take a look at, I'll work with them to share pipeline with me and revenues with me, and what they think they can do. So we'll build a whole business case for it. So it's just, you know, if you're out there, and I've seen other people do the old, hey, if you want to partner with me, let's do a partnership. You know, you get stuck in these cycles, and what you end up doing is wasting time, and they're not successful. Because if we do a technology partnership, I'm going to tell you, we're going to put everything behind it. So most of the people that we deal with, like you said, it's on both sides. If the organization that's trying to partner with me, or I'm trying to partner with them, if they don't have something similar where there's a dedicated group that handles this, that's a red flag. It's a red flag, right? Because you've got to watch out for things like that, because you're probably not going to get the time or dedication you need.
Awesome.
Excuse me about that. Yeah. So yeah, just, there are pitfalls, and that's the biggest one I've seen. So if you're a provider that wants to partner with one of the larger providers, that's what I'm going to tell you, right? Advice is come with a business plan and execution plan as well. If you're one of the larger providers, obviously there's things that you want to look for to make sure they have a dedicated team to this, a dedicated go-to-market for it on their side, because you can't have a person saying, hey, it makes sense that we and I do get this a lot, right? I get, I'm sure like many of you out there, I get pinged on LinkedIn, we should partner. Okay. And I just have some qualifying questions around, the motivation. I just start with, what is your results you're trying to get, and what are your top give me your top three. What do you think you want out of this partnership? If we do something, that can eliminate a lot. But you can imagine, I almost definitely on a weekly or every other day, I got pinged by some type of new person with an idea that they think they want to partner with us. Now, I'll usually, if they come back with the right answers, I'll go for it, and I'll take it to the next level for a proper evaluation. But yeah, you just have to, you could be on either side, right? So kind of weed it out quickly. If you're on the big side.
Well, you're a gentleman and champion with regards to supporting all of these people that come to you with ideas. I really appreciate that, because
Sure.
quite often it's people like me on the other side as well. So
Absolutely.
So listen, as we're on the cusp of closing, just a piece of advice in terms of what would you say to vendors that want to build, that want to move towards this partner ecosystem transformation, that want to
Sure.
start to rely more on marketplaces? How do you maintain that trust with the partners? How do you keep that relationship kindled?
Yeah. So let's start with advice for all of you out there that are looking to do this. So it's a journey. It's not a thing. You don't rip the Band-Aid off and just go, right? So there are different phases and steps to do an ecosystem transformation. This is a multiple year type process. And, it's not something you just, because if you do something really fast, you'll probably end up pissing off more people than helping. So it is a process. Complete the feedback loop. So always baseline where you're at today, and then future state, and then get feedback on how it's going from your partners. And that's how you keep the other thing too is I was very open with the partners here that we were going to go through some changes, and that's how you also keep them all copacetic and happy. Be as transparent as you can be. I know there's some things that you can't always disclose, but let them know, give them a roadmap, right? I remember I gave them a roadmap of here's how the program is going to change. I also told them, here's why we're making some of these changes. A lot of it had to do with feedback that we received. With some of you looking at things like, I know you brought up marketplaces, depending on where at in the world you are, the acceptance of marketplaces as part as a route to market is, it varies, but like if you're in the US, you have no choice, right? End users are demanding it. So, that's something you have to embrace, and partners of that too. It's international markets, a little bit different, but it's all changed, right? And relationships are very important. There is a way to maintain and keep partners along with it. So just keep it simple, take the friction out, and feedback loops are super important.
And be transparent. I like that. Well, listen, this has been an incredible session. We touched on a lot of the hot buttons that I wanted to touch upon. So your experience is phenomenal. Your acumen is incredible. You're a real strategist of the highest order. So thank you for participating
Thank you, Carlo,
on this session.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, truly humbled, and looking forward to working with you on many more things in the future. You take good care.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.